So a little before debate time, he gets a shot in the ass, and they want to strengthen him up. So he comes out. He'll come out. I say he'll come out all jacked up, right? All jacked up.
New York Times senior political correspondent, best-selling Trump biographer Maggie Haberman joins me now. Obviously he has no shame and he makes stuff up, but it's very inconsistent. It's one moment he's a worthy debater, and then he's going to be doing massive amounts of cocaine.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of the Donald Trump and his team that we have seen over 9 years now, which is his team wants him to do one thing, he does something else. And he sometimes can stick to the script, but then he goes off of it, which is why predictions of how he is going to actually be in this debate are probably not worth very much. We know that he has been preparing for this debate in the way he does, with sort of policy sessions as opposed to classic, behind the podium matches. But whether he is going to absorb what he's learning there, and whether he is going to come in, interrupting President Biden less than he did in 2020 in their first debate, it is an open question, because he does what he wants to do.
I just want to play something else he said at the rally over the weekend.
How should I handle him? Should I be tough and nasty? Or should I be, she'd say, no, should I be tough and nasty and just say you're the worst president in history? Or should I be nice and calm and let him speak?
Do you think, does he sort of change in the moment, just riffing how he feels in the moment, or is it something he kind of thinks of as he's going to bed that night and just thinks in his head, doesn't tell anybody else?
I think sometimes he plays around with these things on his own. I think sometimes, as you see, he poll tests it because he thinks it's going to please whatever crowd he's in front of. Whatever's on his mind is often what he does with these crowds, and it could be anything. It could be, he's been poll testing everyone about VP at various fundraisers, and this is along the same lines. I was thinking, though, as he was saying that, I think he will be both. I think he will likely interrupt less, because I think that's the main lesson he took from the last debate, or their first debate in 2020. And I think he will be very mean toward Biden. I will be very surprised if he is anything other than that.
I want to bring in CNN political commentators, Republican strategist Michael Singleton, also former Biden White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield. First of all, Kate, what do you make of this new reporting from Kayla Tausche? In your view, should President Biden go on the attack rather than lean on his accomplishments?
Yeah, look, I think his primary task in this debate is to show people what the choice is. And that is, he's got to do that by driving aggressively at Trump, going at contrast, taking the conversation to the places where Trump is most vulnerable. We know that's abortion. We know that's January 6th and democracy. So I think he absolutely needs to be aggressive. I am not of the mindset that means he can't speak about his record in the debate. Part of what he's trying to do is show people that he's done a good job in the first 4 years and he deserves 4 more. And so he can absolutely talk about the things he's done to get our economy to a better place than many thought it would be 4 years ago. But he's got to do it in a contrast frame. He's got to do it by saying, Donald Trump's vision for the next 4 years would make things more expensive for you. And, he's really got to make sure that he's never just talking about his own accomplishment, but driving it to a choice, because that's really what he's trying to do in this debate, show people.
As you know, history shows for incumbent presidents, it's very hard, usually in their first debate. Even President Obama, David Axelrod has talked about this, who knew that history, they still find it hard. And part of the reason is because often they do feel, they haven't had people pushing back in their faces for the last 4 years. And also they do feel like they want to talk about their accomplishments, even if those accomplishments may not be felt or perceived by large numbers of people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a natural instinct. You can understand. If you've been president of the United States for 4 years, you've been working hard, you've gotten things done, you feel like you want to make a case to the American people.
But how do you overcome that?
So, some of it is about prep. Some of it is about working through how you answer a question in a way that drives to the contrast you want and brings Trump in and doesn't just make it about reciting a laundry list of accomplishments that are important and meaningful, but may not feel in the moment like they're landing in people's lives. So it's really thinking about how do you answer a question in a way that brings it back around to Donald Trump and doesn't just leave you sort of saying, well, look what I've done and that's enough. Because it really is about a choice. And that's the theory the Biden campaign has had from the outset, right? That the way they win is by drawing this contrast, and that when they have the Trump versus Biden comparison, Trump is unpalatable. And so he's got to really stick to that in this debate.
Sure, Michael. Trump is even rustier. He has not been in the arena, really, for the last couple of years. And he's been talking to, he's been in arenas, but just in long, rambling soliloquies.
Yeah, look, it's been a while for the former president. It's been a while for the current president. I think it's important for both of these men, if I can take an objective analysis here, to really drive home what their plans are for immigration and for the economy. If I'm advising President Biden, I want to be contrite. I want to acknowledge that while things have improved, I get that for most people, you're not feeling those things materially. This is what I'm going to do if given another 4 years. If you're Donald Trump, you want to make a contrast from President Biden to say, look, he's been given 4 years. Things have not gotten better. Things have gotten worse by some metrics. This is what I will do to improve your lot in life. Both gentlemen are going to have to wrestle, Anderson, I would argue, with trying to accomplish two different things if they're wanting to achieve some level of measurable success at the end of this debate.
But Megyn, I mean, that sounds, for rational candidates, yes, that makes sense. For what this debate could easily devolve into, I mean, you don't hear a lot of policy from Donald Trump. I mean, that's just not what his thing is.
When you do hear it, it's in incredibly broad strokes, and mostly what you hear is him condemning President Biden, and I expect that you will continue hearing that. I mean, I also think Trump is going to have a different set of arguments against him by President Biden than he has had in the past. What came up over and over and over again when President Trump was in office as president was questions about corruption, questions about investigations he was facing. Obviously, there's going to be, I think, references to the criminal case, and I'm sure that you will hear the current president talk about that. But I also think Jen O'Malley Dillon, the campaign manager for Joe Biden, or who's running the campaign, had a line with John Heilman in Puck this morning in an interview where she basically made clear that the contrast is going to be, you know, I'm Joe Biden and I care about you, and Donald Trump only cares about himself and people like him. And that's he's a rich guy contrast. And so I do think you are likely to hear the incumbent president deal with that. I don't know what you're going to hear Trump say in response.
Sure, Michael, I just want to play something of how the former president claims he's been preparing for the debates.
I'm preparing by taking questions from you and others. If you think about it, we had a great meeting just now in Philadelphia with at the shop. You saw that with all the wonderful people. We just left Faith and Freedom in D.C., and that was incredible. So, but I'm preparing by dealing with you. You're tougher than all of them.
I mean, Michael, I don't think that's true. But if that is true, I mean, that's a gift to the Biden administration, obviously, because the softballs he gets from, you know, people at set-up events are obvious.
I mean, look, it's different. Every candidate is different. When I worked for Mitt Romney, he had a very, very arduous debate prep process. I wasn't a part of that. I was still growing in my political career. But when I worked for Newt Gingrich, a great debater, really smart guy, deep into the policy stuff, Dr. Carson was very different. You really have to sort of prep candidates where they are, Anderson, based upon their strengths and weaknesses. I hope that the Trump campaign is focusing on that. But I want to say something here quickly to what Maggie was just saying. If President Biden spends a majority of his time talking about January 6th or talking about democracy or saying Donald Trump doesn't care about you, that does not provide an answer for what he's going to do for the next 4 years. If I'm a voter and I'm thinking, I already have my opinions on Donald Trump, I already have my opinions on Joe Biden, and all Joe Biden is talking about how terrible Trump is, but Trump is saying, okay, but the economy sucks under Joe Biden, but immigration is a problem under Joe Biden, but the world is on fire because of multiple foreign conflicts with aggressions from China, with aggressions from Russia under Joe Biden. That is a very, very clear contrast. I get bringing up the point maybe once or twice, but if I'm Biden, I'm talking about what I'm going to do for the next 4 years while understanding where people currently are. To do the alternative would be a drastic mistake, in my opinion.
Kate, I mean, President Biden does sometimes get tripped up when, I mean, I think he has a natural inclination to go into details on policy, details on things other legislation he has passed in his long storied career. And that can get tripped up. And when you're facing somebody who doesn't need to go into any details on any policies. I mean, he used to have a policy when he was first running about going to Iraq and taking their oil and surrounding the oil fields with soldiers and just sucking all the oil out. I mean, it made no sense, but how do you argue against that?
Well, some of it I think is part of what they're trying to do here is illustrate that Trump is not fit to return to the Oval Office. So I don't believe you do that by having an extensive policy debate back and forth. I don't think that that's where most of the audience is going to be focused. I think that takes you down rabbit holes that sort of feels disconnected from people's lives. We could talk about what that means about the state of politics, but I think that that's true. So, for Biden, I think really pushing to hold Trump accountable on the things that we know are some of his biggest political vulnerabilities, but also forcing him, I mean, sort of to Shermichael's point, sort of forcing him to talk about what are you going to do for the next 4 years? What are you going to do to help people across this country? And really taking it to the offensive rather than spending all of that time sort of on the defensive, defending himself and his policies.
The problem with that, though, is that Trump has been president before. And so for whatever reason, and there's a lot of debates as to why, a big factor seems to be the post-COVID period. There are a lot of people who feel like their lives were last good in 2019, and Trump happened to be president then. And so Biden is not facing a tabula rasa. He's facing somebody who has a record.
Absolutely not. But I also think that's part of Biden's task, is to remind people of the things that they disliked about Trump. The most outrageous immigration language, the things that were off-putting to people